So, Alan, we've scheduled this quick talk about integral eye movement therapy, IEMT training, or finger waggling as it's affectionately known to many of us. Um, so I know you've done lots of training in it. You've delivered lots of training in it yourself. I've attended training. We've had you over to the Northwest a good number of times to do it. But for people who haven't come across IEMT, what is it? So what's IEMT, and why would anybody want to learn it?
So thanks, Chris. IEMT, Integral Eye Movement Therapy, was created by Andy Austin, who's a British therapist, to help people who are stuck, and whether they're stuck in an emotion. So our anger comes to the front all the time, anxiety's there all the time. It could be something that the person gets an overreaction to, or if someone's got an identity that's stuck, that's from childhood, possibly I'm stupid, I'm thick, I'm horrible, I'm angry, I'm ugly, I'm useless. Um, they're the two main patterns that we can help with. But also there's a trauma pattern, a post-traumatic stress pattern that can be really effective at unlocking that trauma. So effectively, it's a stuck state of emotion, identity, or trauma, and it uses eye movement to move that original memory. So we source the original memory from where the person thinks it started, because that original memory is hooked into everything across the whole lifetime of the person. And by moving the eyes around, it will connect with different aspects and different parts of that memory and that feeling across that person's life. And in very simple terms, it allows the memory to go back into the history where it's meant to be, instead of being at the forefront like a ghost that the person sees the world through. So it allows person to have a much more adult perspective on something that was probably created as a very young child that wasn't processed properly. It helps the processing. So if you've ever noticed, so a simple way to explain it, if you ask someone a complicated question, their eyes tend to move around quite a lot to find the answer. And that's called a transderivational search, or a TDS. With IEMT, we deliberately evoke a transderivational search so that the person's memory gets moved around different parts of the brain, which from NLP we know connects with different senses. And when we fully sensorily process it, it then feels like a memory rather than a current day thing, which keeps coming forward. So the person often recalls, I know the memory, I can see the memory now, and it feels a lot younger, and I haven't got that emotion tied to it.
And it's you and I are fairly well versed in this stuff. So it's what we'd call a content-free process, isn't it? So
Yes.
if I'm remembering something traumatic that happened to me some time ago, I don't actually have to go through any of the detail. It's not a verbal thing. I don't have to talk about it. All the processing that's done, it's done on the inside and silently, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we definitely don't want the person to recall the trauma. We don't want them to tell us about the trauma. Even strong feelings. We don't really want somebody reanimated into a really, really strong feeling. We would like them to feel that feeling a little bit of anger, a little bit of anxiety, so we know what we're working with. But essentially, the person doesn't have to tell us the
Yeah.
memory that they're thinking about. Most people do, but if they don't want to tell us, they don't have to tell us. This is why it's
Yeah.
really good for children. It's good for people who are very embarrassed about speaking about their stuff. Um, People who are too emotional to speak, or feel awkward with talking about their issues. We just need to know what they're feeling or what they're thinking about themselves as an identity. The trauma pattern is slightly different, and it's quite a specialist pattern. I would say that, people who already work with trauma, it will really enhance their practice. For people who don't, it's worth knowing. But I would say the majority of people will use the kinesthetic, the feeling-based pattern, or the identity pattern very effectively. For personal
Yeah.
development, people don't have to be therapists to do this. Personal development, and then people go and often help family and friends or their own children. There's a lot of young people now struggle with anxiety and exam nerves, and the resilience isn't always there. This is a really
Yeah.
good thing for building in resilience with everybody, but children and adults alike. It's just good for personal growth and clearing out stuff that like phobic responses or like really strong emotional responses that just get in the way of it. Even if people are basically okay, there can be one emotional thing that sometimes takes over, and that's annoying if nothing else. So people can get rid of those things as well.
Yeah. And while it's often used therapeutically for stuff that's got origins in the past, I mean, the other beauty of it for me is you can use it in the here and now as almost like emotional first aid. So if somebody's caught up in something in the here and now, something that's difficult for them, it's like a bit of finger waggling can work wonders. So we had somebody on a course who was in a very distressed state. She'd learnt there'd been a big problem at home. She said, "I've got to leave," but was in such an emotional state about it that I was worried about her being able to drive. And we literally did just 5 minutes of the IEMT, enough to bring her emotional state down to one that meant that she could drive well and easily. As well as that sort of historical thing, I think this is a wonderful piece of emotional first aid. I think everybody should know about it, really.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. And often the person, even if it's a really, so people have seen me and other IEMT practitioners come with something that's intruded on their life every day for the past 20 years,
yeah, yeah,
and they have a session using IEMT and they can't remember what the problem was. It causes that amnesia sometimes of
yeah, yeah,
what, I can't even remember why I came to see you. And this was something that was there at the front of the brain every day for a long, long time. And it's because everything we feel, we create it on the inside. The imagery, the thoughts, the feelings, and the stuff that we're running on the inside is what dictates how we feel in the now. And these intrusive memories, these intrusive patterns, or probably with the colleague you worked with there, this reaction is something I've always done when I feel really, really stressed. And I learned to do it very, very young, and I can cool it down in the now just to allow me to get on with the day that I need to get on with.
yeah, yeah. So the training is 2 days to become an IEMT certified practitioner. There are some requirements within that, aren't there? So
Yeah, so the 2 days will be an attendance, so people get an attendance certificate, and I ask for three short case studies afterwards about somebody they've worked with that doesn't know IEMT, because there'll be practice on the 2 days, a lot of practice, but when we're working in a training environment, everybody's sort of helpful and wants to know and helps each other to know how to use it. Finding somebody out there who let them use it, who doesn't know IEMT, and it's just a small case study on so what the person wanted to see them for, how they knew that the IMT was going to work well, which they learn on the course, and where it started and where it's gone to, how they did the process. So it's just to demonstrate to me that the person knows how to use
yeah,
IMT effectively, and it also gives them some practice with real people
yeah.
who aren't on the training course with them.
And that can be a written case study. Is a
They
video
could do, yeah,
focused
they
on?
could do it on a video as well. And I mean, it's always useful for me to see people working in person, so that might be an easier way now with people who are very technical. If you're not technical, it's fine. The case studies are okay. But if someone can do a little clip of them working or invite me into a Zoom, that would work. And then on completion of that, then we can certify the person fully, and they can join the association of IEMT, which is about £50 a
Yeah,
year, excuse me. Currently, that means they can use the logo and advertise themselves as a practitioner. And there's always option for the advanced course, which is another 2 days further down the line if people wanted to learn different ways to work with it.
yeah, yeah. And the training itself, I know there's some theory behind it, but lots of practice as usual.
Yeah, it's very, very practical course. We learn the moves and practice with each other. We can, so if people have always got stuff that they can improve, you can actually use it for personal development growth as well,
Yeah,
while you're on the course. So a lot of people do get benefits whilst on the course, as well as learning a technique they can go out and use pretty much straight away.
yeah, yeah. And certainly the courses that we've hosted you for in the past, everyone has had people get some real big personal shifts from it, as well as learning the skill to use with other people. So, and very often for stuff that they've wanted dealt with over many years, and then they come to IEMT and all of a sudden they get that help, which is fairly splendid, isn't it, really?
It is, and it is something that a lot of people might have given up hope with other approaches,
Yeah,
because it's chronic, it's chronicity, it's chronic stuckness that a lot of what you might call top-down therapy doesn't work.
yeah,
Going
yeah,
in through the thoughts, in through the top of the brain, the human brain doesn't quite get into that stuff which sits deep in the limbic system, the fight or flight responses. We have the unconscious protection that we've created that's outside of our logical control. So it does tap through into that stuff that's harder to get. So the people I see work with a veterans charity for post-traumatic stress who've been through traditional approaches, which have often made them recall things and has actually made it worse for them a lot of the time. We'll get a massive shift with IEMT usually, and that's why the charity, the company I work with, use IEMT with all of their veterans as well, the blue light staff. So for people who work in that arena, it's something that's much more effective than a lot of the other approaches.
Yeah. And when people have got the skill under their belt, some of my reflection on it is just how quickly you can help other people with this. So I think it was only a week or so after I attended the course for the first time 10, 11, 12 years ago. I was asked if I could work with an older lady in her late 70s, had a huge needle phobia. So bad that they used to have healthcare staff hold her down to draw blood. And she developed something that she needed to have regular sort of blood tests. And we spent like 40 minutes, did IEMT with her, went to the doctors a few days later, cool as a cucumber, absolutely gone. And lots of stories like that. That's part of the reason I love this so much, is it allows you to do some really nice, kind stuff with people very quickly. So things like fear of flying, exam fear, interview worries, those sorts of things, all of a sudden become very workable. And just lovely to help people make shifts like that so quickly.
Yeah, I think, the metaphor I always think about is it puts things in perspective. You think about the visual,
very good.
using eyes movement.
Yeah.
It means I can see it for what it is rather than for that exaggerated version I was working from.
Yeah.
And I often have an adult response to a very young memory where it started, the imprint memory where it started.
And we can create change in the blink of an eye, Alan, can't we? That's the strapline.
Of course we can.
Yeah.
It is sometimes like miracles. It is so empowering for people that where other things haven't worked very well. So it's not, it's not a catch-all. Like, I don't think anything's like the catch-all for absolutely everything, but it's been something it's something I use with every single client that I work with, because everyone brings emotions, identities, and if not trauma, they're bringing those two things. So it is something that's a really quick and usually permanent shift for people as well. That's done very quickly without re-traumatizing anybody. So I think it's a win-win approach that every student I train in it that uses it finds it really powerful with their work.
Yeah, and it's not just something for adults, is it? That's the beauty of it, that with a bit of imagination, you can use this even with quite young children.
Yeah, very young children.
Yeah.
I know people that have bought Harry Potter wands and things to get because it involves following the fingers. But if you're with a child, if you use a toy or a magic wand, because it is like a magic wand.
Yeah.
It does erase things, like just rubbing out old memories, and it can be it can be amazing that the results that are done immediately as well. It's not like people have to wait for a result. This changes things in the moment for the person.
Yeah, fabulous, wonderful. So we're going to see you end of June in the Northwest again for a course at the Sanctuary, and we look forward to seeing you then and sharing the love, Alan, sharing the love.
Lovely, thank you. See you then.
Yeah, cool, Alan, thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Chris. Bye now.
Ta-ra.